Hello and welcome to another edition of High School Roundup here on CUTV. My name is Matt Hagee, and alongside of me today is Zach Prosba and Anthony D'Agostino. And guys, it's a rainy Tuesday, but how are we doing today?
Yeah, pretty good so far. I'm still battling a cold that I've been going on for a couple weeks or so, but always excited to come down here. It's much better inside the building than outside today for once in a while. It's starting to get fall coming in. Talk about some Friday night highlights at this point.
Yeah, definitely, and it's always good to come back down here. Even though it's raining outside, it's nice inside, and we get to talk about some really great high school football that happened this past weekend. Man, there was a lot of good games that happened this week.
And it really was. This was now the fourth week of high school football in the Whitfield season as we now transition into Week 5. And we will start with our good friends from South Union Township, Laurel Highlands. Laurel Highlands was hosting Uniontown in the Battle for Uniontown, indeed. And Anthony, I'll send it to you, the other man wearing blue polo on today's show. Take it away.
And Laurel Highlands took on Uniontown, as we said before. Good Chad Livingston came back, and you'll see the first highlight. Chad Livingston getting a 14-yard pass from the quarterback, Jimmy Pierce, and good to see him back. And then Jimmy Pierce taking it himself all the way to 6-yard run to the touchdown. Then Jimmy Pierce again keeping it himself, going again into the touchdown, 15-yard run. That was all in the fourth quarter. Then Uniontown, big pass. Phil Mosley breaking a few tackles, 38-yard pass to the 6'1 sophomore Romello Freeman, and that sets up this play. Uniontown touchdown. Phil Mosley keeping it himself, getting pushed by the halfback for a 3-yard run, and kickoff. Uniontown gets the ball and runs up the field and finally breaking a few tackles and getting brought down by the kicker and a few other members. But this play, 2-yard pass to Jacob Swartz. Look at that. He has it in his shoulder pads and 1 foot toe inbounds. Perfect touchdown for Laurel Highlands. Then Lucas Boyle, 8-yard reverse play for the touchdown. Now third quarter, Laurel Highlands keeping up the momentum. Jimmy Pierce, 49-yard pass to Jacob Swartz. No one covering him. He is all the way to pay dirt. And Laurel Highlands again handing the ball. If this was a different quarterback, Lucas Boyle, 3-yard run again into the end zone. Finally, fourth quarter touchdown. Phil Mosley, 1-yard run again from the push from behind. But your final score, Laurel Highlands 46 and Uniontown 13. And guys, how about that last, one of the touchdowns from Laurel Highlands, that 2-yard pass into the end zone to Jacob Swartz. We actually had to look at the replay on that to make sure he actually caught the ball.
You're right, and that was a great catch. And for high school, you only need 1 foot in bounds. Also the same with college. But that's a great comeback win for Laurel Highlands. They had a tough loss to Thomas Jefferson at home, and then they rebounded and knocked out their in-city rivals, you could say. And now we'll take a look at what else happened in the Big Ten Conference this week. We'll start. This was probably the biggest matchup of the week. Ringgold just eking out a win, 14-7 over West Mifflin, and then the Trinity Hillers coming back to life. 2 straight wins for them, 63-12 over Albert Gallatin. But guys, this was a big game in Monongahela, and Ringgold, they had to rally in that game because West Mifflin gave them their all.
Yeah, Ringgold definitely, I think, the favorite in the Big Ten Conference. West Mifflin, their offense has not been as good as it was in previous years. However, that defense is proving to be quite the formidable factor, and they play Bell Vernon coming up this week, so they get the 2 top teams in the Big Ten back-to-back weeks. If they're able to spring an upset, that only helps their chances later on, because West Mifflin, they're kind of middle of the pack. They need to start stacking up some wins again to playoff contention.
They definitely do, and as we move along in the Big Ten Conference here, the rest of the games, pair of shutouts right here. Thomas Jefferson also rebounding from an 0-2 start to get a 48-0 win over Elizabeth Ford, and then Bell Vernon hanging 66 on York. But Anthony, Thomas Jefferson, this is the type of TJ team we're used to seeing.
Yeah, they really took it to Elizabeth Ford, 48-0. It's just powered offense, and Hill scored on runs of 78 and 35 yards for Thomas Jefferson. So really great running for Thomas Jefferson, giving them the 48-0 win.
And that Quentin Hill kid is pretty good. We saw last week against Laurel Highlands. Now we'll take a look at the Big Ten standings. You see Ringgold and Bell Vernon pacing away at 4-0 with West Mifflin and Laurel Highlands behind them. But guys, what is one team you're going to focus on here?
I'm going to look at Laurel Highlands, and I feel like we take a look at them every week because they had a chance. If they had beaten Thomas Jefferson, they'd be 4-0 right now, and they'd be cream of the crop in the conference. They're going to start coming up with their part of their schedule. They get Ringgold, Bell Vernon, and West Mifflin in there, in the mix. They need to start knocking off some of those top teams. You have 3 wins early on. You need to beat some of the top dogs if you want a better playoff seed than you got last year when you got just blown out in the first round.
And I'm going to take a look at Thomas Jefferson, kind of in the middle of the pack right now. But with that huge win over Elizabeth Ford, I think they got their offense under the belt right now. I think they can really start jumping a few teams, like they beat Laurel Highlands and West Mifflin. So see who comes up ahead with Thomas Jefferson.
We're going to take a look at this. Thomas Jefferson and Trinity squaring off this week. That's a big playoff game. And now we'll move to Quad A, Foothills Conference. Hempfield, comeback win over Connellsville 40-34, and then McKeesport destroying Latrobe 62-0. But guys, we saw Hempfield make a fourth quarter comeback against Norwin 2 weeks ago. 20 points in the fourth quarter to knock out Connellsville here in a comeback win.
Yeah, that's just good to see, tenacity to be able to come back in the fourth quarter. Hempfield has a big matchup with McKeesport coming this week. I don't know if I'm quite ready to believe in Hempfield yet as a power in the Foothills Conference, but if they're able to knock out McKeesport or even keep it close, they may start swaying, my opinion.
And moving along as well, and then we'll move along in the Foothills Conference. Penn Trafford flexing their muscles against Altoona 49-0. And then this was the big game in the Foothills Conference right here. Plum over Norwin 33-0. We all picked that game. And Plum, this is the first time in a couple years they've started the season 4-0.
And I picked Norwin over Plum, and well, that didn't happen. They got shut out. But Plum's running back, Nicholas Coxon, 129 yards on 8 carries. What a job by him, and a 97-yard touchdown run from him. Really led the team with that 33-0 win.
There's some excitement going on at Plum High School right now for the Mustangs. And then the one non-conference game here, Kiski facing off against the defending Western champion Pine Richland Rams, and they went into Gibsonia, and they did not come out feeling too hot after that one. But no shame in that one. Pine Richland is ranked among the top teams in Quad A. We saw them make the state final last year. And now we'll take a look at the Foothills standings for Week 4. You see Penn Trafford and also Plum, half game behind Penn Trafford because they only played one less conference game. But what team are you looking at here?
Plum. I mean, they're the one team I think that has shown early on that they have a chance to knock out Penn Trafford. Penn Trafford is a title contender this year. They've made to the semifinals the last 2 years before being knocked out by Pitt Central Catholic. Pitt Central Catholic is down this year. I think Penn Trafford is a favorite to be able to get it to Heinz Field. Plum is the only team that could stand in their way of winning this conference.
Well, I'm actually going to look at McKeesport playing against Hempfield this coming week, so we'll see if they can come out with the victory and get to 4-1. You're looking at them to also go up against Plum and Penn Trafford as well in the standings.
The tricky game for McKeesport, they have to go to Greensburg for that one. That's no tough task, but Hempfield still a little bit inconsistent. Remember, they lost to Kiski 2 weeks ago before getting the big win over Connellsville on the road. So we'll take it to break here. When we come back, we will have highlights for our CUTV Game of the Week. Jeff Morgan at Cal High School, and then we'll take a look at AA and the rest of Single A coming up next on High School Roundup here on CUTV.
Complete news, entertainment, and sports coverage from around the area, region, and nation is found right here on CUTV News Center every Thursday at 5 p.m. with anchors Jennifer Germano, Zach Prosba, entertainment with Mike Mays, and sports with Matt Hagee. Follow us on YouTube, CUTV News Center, and on Twitter, CUTV_PA, for your complete rebroadcast of your Vulcan sports. News Center airs every Thursday at 5 p.m. on Armstrong and Atlantic Broadband.
And welcome back to High School Roundup here on CUTV. We looked at the upper classifications, and now we're going to take a look at the lower classifications. We will start in Single A because our CUTV Game of the Week last week was at local California High School as they faced off against the Jeff Morgan Rockets. And Zach, you will have the highlights, review the highlights for that game.
Yeah, I was honored to be able to direct this game in the truck. We'll go ahead and start it off in the first quarter, of course, at Trojan Stadium, California. Jeff Morgan here. Eli Raphael, a 9-yard touchdown pass to Jake Bissett, makes it 7-0 JM early on. And then some more. In the second quarter, California is starting to maybe sway towards their ranks. Austin Grillo, an interception here to start off the second quarter. Actually, towards the end of the second quarter. And then Casey Zychek, a 55-yard run. This is the last play of the half, but he stopped just about 13 yards short of the end zone. And we were all screaming in the truck, and you were on the call trying to contain your excitement. If he had scored that play, it would have turned this game a lot differently. In the third quarter, Joe Headley fumbles the ball. It's recovered by Sajak for California. This sets California up for another drive, but they're not able to really do anything with it. That's kind of the whole theme of the night. Then Braden Collins for California blocks a punt. California gets the ball about the 15-20 yard line. That sets up this. Casey Sachek, a 13-yard touchdown run going out the right side into the end zone. And after this play, California decides to go for two to try and get the lead with only 4 minutes left. And Sachek gets the 2-point conversion to pile into the end zone. 8-7 California. Then Jeff Morgan, after offense stalled all night, Trevor Nia on a forward fumble. Very controversial play. It's in the backfield. I understand that as he scores here. Fumble forward. The quarterback should have been the one to pick this up and not the running back. California tries to come back with one last final effort on 4th down. The pass is completed, but it's well short of the first down marker, and California falls 13-8. But guys, that play I was talking about, because there was a fumble in the backfield, the ball went forward, the quarterback didn't necessarily have to pick it up. Although my understanding of the rule is, on offense, if it's a forward fumble, the person that fumbles it has to pick it up. And the quarterback dropped it and just happened to hit the running back. So that touchdown was a little bit controversial, but it did end up standing.
That last 4 minutes of that game was just wacky. There was just so many crazy things happening because it was 7-0 and then all those happened. It was a great, exciting game. Anthony, you and I were on call for that game. But that was weird because we were in the booth and there was some gentleman next to us that was explaining, saying, hey, since it was in the backfield, anyone can pick it up. And then we're hearing like so many different explanations, but the point is Jeff Morgan still comes away with a big road win at California High School and looks ahead to next week.
And I'll just say, if you have an explanation for us, tweet us at CUTV_PA, hashtag HSR 2015. We'd like to know if you have your own opinion on this play as well. It's very up in the air. Does it count or not?
And you could also say that if the ball was placed into the hands of the running back and he just missed it, didn't take the possession, then it's the running back's fault for fumbling that because he didn't grab the ball. So either way, you couldn't really tell on that one either.
Oh, absolutely. So, but it was nonetheless a wonderful game to call. And now we'll take a look at what else happened in the Tri-County South this past week. Bentworth, 65-8 over Avella. Bentworth continuing to move forward here, and then Beth Center getting the shutout win over Carmichael's 28-0. But for Beth Center here, not a lot of points in this game, but there's one man that, of course, had a lot of rushing yards in that game.
And who but Tony Welsh, 36 carries, 294 yards, and 2 touchdowns of 317 total yards on offense. And he is this Beth Center's life and blood of that team.
He really is. In 2 weeks, we get to see him play Frazier. And then speaking of the Frazier Commodores, as we'll see in our next scoreboard here, Frazier continues to dominate on defense, 42-0 over Mapletown. Zach, they've only allowed 3 points in 4 games this season.
Yeah, Frazier's defense is on point this year. When they get that Beth Center matchup at BC, it's going to test Beth Center's offense against Frazier's defense and vice versa, as both units are traditionally good in this conference.
Now moving along with the scores between the Tri-County South, and also this was the weekly Tri-County South versus Eastern Conference game, and in this game, Sarah Catholic gets their first win of the season over West Green. And now we'll move to the Tri-County South standings here. As you see, usual suspects up front, Frazier, Beth Center leading the way, 4-0, then Beth Center one less game. Frazier gets their non-conference game this week. But guys, Bentworth and Jeff Morgan down there, they play each other this week. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, and of course, the team I'm going to look at is Beth Center. Anthony Welsh. I was at their playoff game last year when Anthony Welsh was at the goal line ready to plow in for the winning touchdown, and he fumbled the ball at like the half-yard line. He is on a one-man wrecking crew to prove that his senior year is going to go all or not. And I think that matchup against Frazier, we're still a week away from it, and we'll talk extensively next week. Beth Center's really got their eye on that team, and they have to be careful this week. I don't think it's a heavy matchup that could potentially spoil an upset, but they still have to be careful not to look ahead.
Well, and as we said before, we actually got 2 teams that are going against each other that are right now neck and neck. California and Carmichael's 1-2, and then Bentworth and Jeff Morgan 3-1. I'm going to look at Jeff Morgan. They played pretty well against California. That power I formation that they have really sets them. Well, they got 3 good backs they can go to. I think they have a really good shot up against Bentworth.
And Bentworth's defense also playing well. They're the surprise feel-good story. But for Cal and Carmichael, this is basically almost going to turn into an elimination game for the playoffs because looking ahead, they're running out of time to catch that top 4 spot. Now moving along in single A to the other conference we cover, the Eastern Conference. Greensburg Central Catholic over Riverview 38-14, and then Jeanette over Wilkinsburg 44-6. So Greensburg Central Catholic battered by Clairton, but they come back with the win over Riverview.
And Greensburg Central Catholic, L.A. Ross, 118 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. And GCC scored 31 of the 38 points in the first half, so they really came out with a vengeance in the first half.
And also, interesting stat I saw when I was looking up some stats for that game. Riverview normally does not have lights, but for every year they play one game with portable lights underneath their stadium, and that was the game. So that's a pretty cool story that they do, kind of nice tradition. Now moving along in the Eastern Conference here, Monessen 28-13 over Leechburg, and then Clairton. This was a battle of undefeated teams, 48-13 over Springdale. But Zach, Clairton kind of struggled early in this game. They only were up 14-0 at halftime.
Yeah, Clairton is seemingly in the last couple weeks, now that they're facing stiffer competition, they've not been as dominant with GCC, Springdale. They get Jeanette next week as well, as we're calling it the gauntlet weeks of all weeks in the Whippeal. Springdale, they get Jeanette this week as well, and I think Springdale could possibly pull that upset.
And now we'll take a look at the Eastern Conference standings. Week 4, you see Jeanette half-game lead over Clairton because Clairton played the non-conference game against Cal High School there. But a big jockeying there for those last spots there. Springdale, Monessen, GCC. And guys, between those three, one of them is not going to make the playoffs. And that's a big name that's going to miss it.
Yeah, and seriously, and not being here, I don't know exactly who that is. So, Zach, can you take over for me here?
Well, I'm going to say if one of those teams is not going to make playoffs, it's going to be Monessen. They are, I'm not trying to be biased in any way, but they're a step below GCC and Springdale from what I've seen so far. Monessen has a lot to prove. They struggle with Leechburg, and Leechburg, as you see in the standings, not a very good record. So I think GCC, they're going to end up catching Monessen and jump them, and Monessen, the Greyhounds, they'll be on the outside looking in towards playoffs.
Now, once again, I'm looking at Clairton. They're the favorite right now, in my opinion, to get all the way to the state finals again for their division. But they got to go up against Jeanette, and in the standings, and again, one team is going to come away with a loss somewhere in this in the coming few weeks.
It's going to be great to see those two teams square off. But now we'll move up to AA Interstate Conference here, and the game we got this week, both of those teams we talk about looking ahead, both Mount Pleasant and Wash High took care of business right here against Waynesburg and Brownsville, respectively, and just sets up for the undefeated matchup this week.
And Mount Pleasant, this is your week. It's homecoming. We're doing this game live on PCN across all of Pennsylvania. You've been second fiddle to Wash High for the last few years now. This is your time. If you're going to make the move to be first place, this is the week to do it when you take down the Washington Little Prexies.
And then moving along in the Interstate Conference here, the rest of the games we played this week. This game made me mad because I picked Charleroi. Burgettstown 62-18 over Charleroi, and then McGuffey getting a big win over Southmoreland 28-10. But Anthony, Burgettstown, second win this season. Their quarterback put up some numbers in this game.
He really did. He completed 17 of 31 passes for 330 yards and threw 5 touchdown passes and ran for 2 more. And we actually had the Charleroi game on CUTV, not this past week, but 2 weeks ago, and we noticed that Charleroi got a few penalties that kind of shot themselves in the foot with those penalties and turnovers. But Burgettstown really took it to them with their quarterback.
And then the one non-conference game this week in the Interstate Conference. Here's a surprising matchup. Laurel beating Derry 40-0. We saw Derry beat Charleroi 2 weeks ago. But now we'll take a look at the Interstate Conference standings here, and just sets up Mount Pleasant, Wash High. Zach, talk about Wash High.
Well, Washington, they're a running team. There's a possibility it's going to rain on Friday night, which plays into their game plan. Their defense is always good. However, Mount Pleasant is that thorn in their side that they're going to have to, pick out and, put to the side if they're going to end up winning this conference. It's going to be a huge game.
This is going to be an excellent game. And going forward, it's going to be these two undefeated teams. How often do we get to see that on a CUTV High School Game of the Week? Well, we're going to get the final, we're going to look ahead to this week when we come back. We're also going to talk about our picks and also top 3 plays. Did someone knock off Tim Vecchia? We'll find out next here on CUTV.
Cal U's best music. More music in the car. More music in the door. More music everywhere. This is 91.9 WCAL Power 92. The home of the Vulcan Nation, playing Cal U's best music. 91.9 WCAL. WCAL! Power 92.
First published in the 1880s, the California Times is the oldest student media at California University. Circulating 3,000 issues weekly on campus and in the surrounding community, the Times' mission is to deliver fair and balanced news to the student population of California University. All students are welcome to be a part of the California Times. Our offices are located in the Natali Student Union. Keep up to date with the Times online at www.caltimes.org, Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.
And welcome back to High School Roundup here on CUTV. We're going to jump in right to the upcoming games this week. We will start in the Foothills Quad A. Altoona at Norwin, McKeesport at Hempfield, Penn Trafford at Latrobe, Plum at Kiski, and then non-conference game, Connellsville travels to Pittsburgh to face off against Central Catholic. Now moving along in AAA here, we'll take a look at what's going on in the Big Ten Conference this week. And Bell Vernon at West Mifflin, that's the big game. Elizabeth Ford at Uniontown, LH goes to York, Ringgold at Albert Gallatin, and then Trinity at Thomas Jefferson, rounding out the matchups here. But Zach, that's going to be a good game between Bell Vernon and West Mifflin. A lot of defense.
Yeah, West Mifflin, if their defense shows up again, Bell Vernon did have troubles early on in the year when we saw them against Trinity, who has a pretty decent defense as well, just not the offensive power to be able to overtake Bell Vernon. That's a matchup of two great defenses, and Bell Vernon cannot look ahead to Ringgold in a couple weeks. If they do, they're going to lose that game.
Now AA, we will take a look at the Interstate Conference. Brownsville at McGuffey, Charleroi at Waynesburg Central, battle of winless teams, Derry at Southmoreland, and then Wash High at Mount Pleasant, the big game, along with the non-conference game, Elwood City at Burgerstown. But Anthony, need we say less? Wash High, Mount Pleasant.
And we already mentioned Washington at Mount Pleasant. It's going to be on PCN live across Pennsylvania. So huge game, 4-0 teams. And as we said before, Washington's a running team, so they may have the upper hand if it starts raining. Mount Pleasant likes to go to the air more. So could we see a favor with the weather?
In single A, we'll start with the Eastern Conference here. Jeanette Springdale, big game to lead right off there. Sarah Catholic at Greensburg Central Catholic. Monessen at Wilkinsburg. Clairton at Riverview. And then the non-conference game, Leechburg at Frazier. And in this game right here, Springdale, they get Jeanette at home. This is what I like to call a show-me-something game. This could be big, not only just to get a big win in Springdale football history, but to help them get better playoff position as well going forward. And then the rest of single A that we covered, Tri-County South. Let's see what's going on here. Avella at Mapletown, Beth Center at West Green, Bentworth at Jeff Morgan, Carmichael's at Cal, and then Leechburg at Frazier. But Zach, Bentworth, Jeff Morgan, that's top game of the week because they're battling here for playoff position.
Yeah, even if you didn't go to that game, I was going to talk about Bentworth. Bentworth so far has been a kind of Cinderella story like Mapletown was last year. We went from my God Mapletown to really good Bentworth. I haven't come up with an acronym for that one yet. But Bentworth, now that you're up there, 3-1, now it's time to start proving that you belong and start beating the teams that are below you before you face the teams on top. You held Frazier to 7 points. You should take down Jeff Morgan, and I expect that kind of as a show-me-something game like Matt said.
And for Bentworth, maybe if they beat Jeff Morgan, I'll think of something for next week's show. But now we'll take a look at the pick'em standings here. And this is, look at this. 4 of us separated by 2 games. And you, Zach, you and Gary going 5-0, and Anthony and myself going 4-1. Charleroi cost me going perfect, as well as I hear our director, Gary Smith, clapping in the studio. But we'll take a look at the games we selected to pick this week. And we will start with Bell Vernon at West Mifflin here. We're split across the board. West Mifflin through Gary and Anthony, and then Zach and myself took Bell Vernon. Anthony, why'd you pick West Mifflin?
Well, West Mifflin just, I feel like they got a shot. Something inside my gut instinct is telling me West Mifflin can top this Bell Vernon team.
We also would like to thank West Mifflin for getting Jimmy Wheeler to Cal U. But anyway, moving along to in the pick'em standings. Pick'em games for this week. Big game right here, Wash High and Mount Pleasant. 3 of us going with Wash High, and then Gary going with Mount Pleasant. I picked Wash High. I think it's like Lance Lazowski said for the Observer Reporter. This is the most athletic team in AA other than Aliquippa that Wash High is. I think Wash High, too many weapons for Mount Pleasant, but Mount Pleasant has a real shot since they're at home. And moving along for the other games we had for pick'em, Jeanette Springdale, all across the board here. We're all going with Jeanette, but Zach, this is still a big game for Springdale.
Absolutely. You know, Jeanette, I went with them because A, had to stay on top in the standings. B, I feel like it's the safe pick. Going with Jeanette, they're the traditional power over Springdale, a team trying to move up the standings. I'll always go with Jeanette, but Springdale, don't think this doesn't mean I have faith that you can pull this upset. I really think you have a big chance.
And then our last game we will be talking about that we will select actually two more than that. Bentworth, Jeff Morgan. I'm the only one going with Jeff Morgan here. I'm going with Jeff Morgan because of their defense and because they're at home, and also the fact that I need to make up ground too. But I think what I saw at Jeff Morgan is they have as good as defense as anyone in the Tri-County South. It's just that offense. They have the running backs, just something's been sputtering. So I think Jeff Morgan gets away with the win here over Bentworth, but we'll see. Show me something, Bentworth. But now, the last game we will be picking this week, Carmichael at Cal High School. We're all going with Cal High School. And Anthony, you and I, like I said, we were on call for that game. You saw something out of Cal. I think we both did. That Cal's a decent team.
And it all starts with number 10, Casey Zajac. I think he's the star of this team. He can be the quarterback or he can be the wide receiver. And we saw that at the game against Jeff Morgan at Cal. I think they can do it again here at California against Carmichael's.
That will do it for our picks, and now we'll take a look at the top 3 plays for this past week. Anthony, start us off.
And our top 3 plays, we have Brandon Collins for California. This is the wrong top 3 plays, but that was Darius Charleroi, and that was Darius' touchdown there for number 3 last week. As we look at the top 3 plays this week, and it's going to start with a California number 3. This is Brandon Collins blocking the punt, and this will set up California's big next play where Casey Zajac gets a touchdown and the 2-point conversion. This set up California's big game.
And number 2 comes from that same game. Trevor Nia, the forward fumble recovery for the 30-yard score that gave Jeff Morgan the clinching touchdown with about 1:45 left in the game and sent Jeff Morgan on the winning trail.
And the number 1 play for this week, we go to Uniontown and Jacob Schwartz. Are you kidding me with that catch? One-handed on the shoulder catch, 1 foot in bounds. Is it enough? No. Tim Vecchio once again reigns supreme as the Blue Ribbon Player of the Week. Has now 3 straight weeks, matching his jersey number. And Tim Vecchio, looking up some stats, Tim Vecchio had 2 touchdowns in their win against Altoona. This kid is unbelievable. And if Penn Trafford does make it to Heinz Field this year for the Quad A championship, it will be because that guy is carrying them on their back. This guy is unbelievable. But guys, we talked about this. It sounds like a broken record, but I'm really excited for that Wash Mount Pleasant game. It needs to be Friday.
Oh, definitely. And it's our first big game of the year. We have a couple weeks coming up where we got this, then Beth Center at Frazier, which we like to dub the game of all the games we do. But Washington Mount Pleasant definitely has a chance to be exactly that when we go to Mount Pleasant on Friday night.
And I believe it's the first time in 20 years that CUTV has went to Mount Pleasant. So this is a huge game for CUTV, and it's live on PCN throughout the state. So definitely tune in. If you can't get to the game, tune in live to PCN or watch a rebroadcast on CUTV.
And also, PCN, I think, will replay it too, I think, on Sunday as well. But myself and Damon Madsen will be on the call for that game. And like I said, it's on PCN at 7 o'clock, and then also we'll be replaying it 2 times during the week as well. Well, that will do it for Anthony D'Agostino, Zach Prosper. My name is Matt Hagee. We thank you for watching this week of High School Roundup, and we'll see you next week.